These are 7 great things about the Kindle Scribe. The screen, the screen, the screen, the screen, the screen, Kindle Unlimited, and the screen. There we go. Okay, I'm only joking, but the first thing is the screen. This is a 300 dot per inch. The 300 dot per inch screen is fantastic. It is currently the only way you can get this resolution of screen on this size of device. And aside from that, it's clear, it's white, it feels good, and it has a great even backlighting. It's fantastic. It looks good with the lights right off, and it looks good at full brightness or somewhere in between. You can also have very warm light or very cold light, depending on your favored option. And you can actually schedule that to change at nighttime. Fantastic. The second one is the highlight button. Now, why don't all Wacom enabled devices have this? I don't know. Because the Kindle Scribe has a highlight button and an eraser on the back. So you have essentially 3 types of input. You have just normal writing input with not pressing anything, you have the highlight button input, and you have an erase button, so you can actually erase areas of the screen just with the back of the pen. This is fantastic. Why don't all devices make use of the 3 types of input that Wacom EMR can clearly handle? The third one is the library. The Kindle library is absolutely fantastic, and I'm going to point out that I think that Kindle Unlimited is really great value. What I'm really enjoying at the minute is the moment I finish a book, I get recommended loads from Kindle Unlimited, and I can pick something without any extra cost. I know I've already paid for that, and it's not cheap. They even wrote to me that they're increasing the price of it, but I still think it's good value. The nice thing is that I don't feel that I need to finish a certain book, because if I've picked out the Kindle Unlimited library, then I can go ahead and take it or leave it, essentially. If I don't like it after the first few pages, then I can just leave it and move on to something else without feeling that I've shelled out any extra cash for that. I really like this. The library is massive, and the next thing is actually the popular highlights and X-ray. And it's only really possible with something with as wide and as popular a library as Kindle. So when we go into any book at all, as long as they have enabled it, doesn't have X-ray on this one, doesn't have popular highlights on this one. So as long as they've enabled it, then X-ray and popular highlights means that you can get to the best bits. You can get to the bits that people have found to be really crucial, really important, and you can get there really quickly. So you get this overview of the parts of the book that other people have found most useful. Of course, that's not the only way to read, and I wouldn't recommend it being the main way to read, but if you're not sure whether you're going to actually use a book, then popular highlights and X-ray are a really good way to sort of scan and find information quickly. I have found myself using this really regularly when I'm not sure if I'm going to really love a book and I'm not sure if I'm going to read it cover to cover. I go in there and I read it by just going through the popular highlights. Often I find that actually something in that book speaks to me and I do want to sit and read it entirely. It's a good way to try before you buy, and it's a good way to get out some key information without committing to the whole book. The pen latency. This has been documented really well in Voya's videos, and the pen latency is actually the fastest of the whole bunch of the Eink tablets that are out there right now. It's fantastic. I do think that we talk about pen latency a little bit too often with these things. You need it to be a certain level where you don't notice it, and then from then on it's fine essentially. So all of the devices that are in the kind of 20 millisecond ballpark, you're not really going to notice it. I just point this out. You're watching this video at 25 frames per second. 25 frames per second is 40 milliseconds. Yes, it is. 25 frames per second is 40 milliseconds. And if you don't really notice the video changing from one frame to the next, then you won't notice pen latency, particularly anything below that 40 millisecond mark, which that was the latency on the original Remarkable. Generally, I find that pen latency is never a problem. However, this is the best, and certainly you are never going to be looking at this thinking to yourself, wow, that's slow, because the pen latency is lightning quick. So if you like a 50 frame per second video, that's how smooth this would be. When I've done a sort of comparison using 25 frames per second video, you don't notice any difference between one device or the other, as long as they're below that 40 millisecond mark. Number 6 is the startup time. Now this is in its kind of sleep mode, which it consumes essentially 0 power, and its startup is lightning fast. This is just from the standby mode. It does go into a deeper sleep, in which case it starts up slightly longer than that, but it's still very, very quick. There isn't much time where you're having a kind of delay and thinking, gosh, I need to write something down, or I want to start reading, and you're actually waiting for it to start. The startup time is really, really good. I could lump in there the battery life. Actually, after some initial hiccups, the battery life is really quite good as well with this device. And then lastly, number 7, the size. I think this is the best Kindle, and if anyone wants to know which Kindle I recommend they buy, it is this one. This is fine if you are reading on a desk and you're using it for writing. It's the best size if you're interested in reading more academic types of books, which, as you can see, are the types of books that I read on it. If you're reading for pleasure, if you're reading fiction, then maybe you should go with a device like the paperwhite, which is more the size of an ordinary paperback book. And I do agree with that. I mean, look how quick this startup time is on a Kindle. I haven't opened this for a week because I've been away and I left this at home. I think this is the size of device that I would like for reading any of this type of book that I do read on here, the more professional literature around schools and around building a business on social media, which is obviously something I'm interested in. And for me, it's really useful to be able to read, to make notes on the book. So as you can see in this book, if I go to some of my highlights, I've been able to make notes with the pen, which I can export all of these and send them to email. It does need a better way to sync to the cloud such that I can get hold of those notes on any computer that I'm on, or any tablet, or even on my phone as well. It really needs that update as soon as possible, please, Kindle. But at the moment, if you're reading this type of book, this type of more academic literature, then certainly this larger size you will get along really well with it. This will be for your novels, this smaller paperwhite size. I watched the Ali Abdal video where he reviewed the Kindle Scribe, and he talked about actually the paperwhite size you can hold in one hand and you can flip forward pages, and he talked about actually reading on the tube. So if any of those situations where you want to hold a book in one hand and leisurely read, then still go the paperwhite. But if you want the larger size for more academic text and you want the Kindle Scribe, you want the ability to write on the screen and make your own notes, then this is the right size for you. This A5 size is the size for sitting up in bed or lounging about on the sofa, and for working here at a desk. For your notebook and for your academic reading, this is a great size. For one-handed laying back in bed, then it is a bit too much and you end up having to kind of balance it. It's also quite slippery, so I do recommend looking at getting a case so that holding it is a bit easier. One-handed, it is a bit of a heavy chunk, and although they have given you that excellent bezel on the side to hold it, I would still suggest that it is a bit large for one-handed reading. Go with something smaller. So there we are, 7 great things about the Kindle Scribe. Despite my damning initial reviews of it, I am starting to really like using this for these certain tasks. It hasn't become my notepad. It hasn't replaced my notebook. It might become more like my notepad later if they make better updates to it. I hope that those will be along soon. But I am, in honesty, really starting to enjoy using this as a reader. And for any of those things where you add notes with the reader, I'm starting to really like it. I'm not saying that it's the best for that yet. It has good scores. It is the best reader out of the whole bunch of Eink tablets that I've tried. Whether it is going to become the best note-taking device or have other apps and links to other cloud kind of storage later, let's wait and see. Recently I took this away on holiday as a sort of travel combination, and I would have thought that I would have taken the paperwhite, but actually I chose to take this with a Nova Air because that smaller device will still allow me the Android features that I really like using on Eink screens. Honestly, there's a kind of debate I think to be had, and I will make a video, what's the best kind of travel? Do you want to travel with the smaller Kindle and the bigger books device, or the bigger Kindle and the smaller books device? I think that's a good combination for traveling. Thanks very much for watching the video. If you did like it, leave a thumbs up.